Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest Zoom. So this one in particular is kind of circulating around the Tritium++ roadmap. We want to get some people's feedback, specifically on our orders of priorities, just to continue to build more community contribution with the development team to ensure that our priorities are your priorities. So, any of you, let's see, that has seen it, let me check it right now. Okay, so we kind of broke it into 8 main categories like we've done before. These categories, there's 2 of them which don't require hard fork, and the rest of them require a hard fork on Tritium++. And those ones are the mobile wallet does not require hard fork, and the DEX does not require hard fork. So those are 2 that I guess are going to be becoming kind of more formally is put together during the process of developing Tritium++. So as we have it standing, we have kind of the DEX is kind of our lower priority just because it requires a lot of extra logical layer and it's kind of more of a module. We put as our highest priority the mobile wallet, which we know people have been requesting quite a bit. So that's kind of where we're putting our focus right now. We're working on developing some sort of daemon connectivity to keep our kind of decoupling architecture that we have been using for the wallet with mobile devices too, and developing just a simple light protocol so this daemon can run in light mode. Now, one of the other benefits of that as well is that your wallet, past the point that is actually released, will be able to run in light mode if you choose to, which basically means that it'll be able to be syncless, which will help with new users. So, I mean, it kind of comes with 2 benefits with developing this mobile wallet is the daemon itself. Eventually having light mode will be able to be used for the desktop wallet as well as for the mobile wallet. Eventually, they're going to support full staking, even in light mode. So we're going to do some cool stuff with that, and the mobile wallet eventually will support the staking. But the first versions will generally just be kind of send, receive, view your transactions, and essentially go through, I think address book and maybe console, some basic things, just so that you can kind of have that functionality in your mobile device, because we know we've had a lot of people that have been requesting this. So that's our first priority. Obviously, drop comments or say something if you feel that we should adjust that. But that's kind of what we've put as our first priority, which means right now we're starting the initial development cycle, which is figuring out how to deploy. We've had an Android device running a full node, actually non-light mode, and compiled, and it ran and successfully has actually been syncing pretty quickly, surprisingly, which is pretty cool. So all the work that we've done up to now has actually enabled support of it natively. So there's not a whole lot of extra work there, but we're just working on kind of finding the proper way to package these 2 together, and then what components of React and Electron doesn't port over, where React Native is. So we have a big kind of complex process to go through there. Kendall can drop some light on that if he feels like he wants to. And then the second priority that we have, this is the DAO. And if all of you know, this is the really important step forward in kind of having on-chain governance for the funding mechanism. So the DAO is part of the whole entire Tritium++ roadmap. And the other part of this Zoom is also to give you guys a bit of an update so that you know what to expect and kind of elaborate a little bit more on each one of these roadmap items, so you can kind of know what to expect. And that also help you guys make suggestions if you feel that we should alter any of the priorities. Timeline target for the mobile wallet is pretty much consistent with our timeline target for Tritium++. I wouldn't say that we actually have a definitive timeline target, because there's still things right now that we're assessing as far as getting the daemon connectivity going in the, what amount of code that we're actually going to have to rewrite that, is dependent on Electron, where React Native won't. So it's the time right now, I guess the simple answer is we don't have a specific timeline. It's in time with the Tritium++ release. So there most likely will be beta or alpha versions of the mobile wallet before Tritium++, is what, I don't want to create too many false expectations, but that should be somewhat doable based on what we know now. And it is also, I just might want to add this, that it is also very complex to be adding a new type of wallet that we're also going to have to be debugging. That's going to be its own type of code base too. So it could take quite some time to, see it fully evolve into its full capability, because it is going to be somewhat of a separate project. So when funding permits, we'll obviously be wanting to bring more resources directly into that, to be helping, move that development along quicker if we can. But right now, as you guys know, we're a small team, still lean and mean. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but it just means that when we're a smaller team, we get things done a little bit slower than if we were bigger. Let's see. I think. Okay. Anyway, so then the second one is the DAO that I was talking about. So the DAO is going to be, I guess I'll give you guys a little bit of a brief overview. This one, we've kind of made some architectural changes to it, as far as right now there's ambassadors and developers, and they operate on two separate reserve systems. What we're actually looking towards is having them operate on one reserve system, and there being two different types of contracts that can be initialized with these, the DAO, which would be ambassadors and developers, so that way the community can have more visibility in, what specific amount of the funding is actually allocated to different pursuits. Ambassadors are kind of more public outreach, and developers, obviously, we develop the protocol. But as far as the voting is concerned, those will be separate, distinct groups. So the first DAO is actually launching with the trust voting group and the ambassador and the developer voting groups. Now, the trust group is what assigns essentially percentage allocation to an ambassador or a developer, which basically says this is the percent that you have of the funds based on the percentage of your vote. So if I have 1,000 Nexus, weighted to whatever trust, think of that as a zero sum that I can work with, and I can take 20% of that and I can allocate that to one contract, and maybe another 50% allocate to another contract, and then the last 30% allocate to another contract. And those are going to set the initial percentages that those embassies are going to receive, whether it's an embassy, development embassy, or an ambassadorial embassy. And then the embassies themselves, after all of that voting is concluded, have their own vote based on the percentage allocation that has been allocated to them, if they want to redistribute amongst themselves, of saying, oh, well, I received a little bit more percent than I need, so I'm going to allocate some of my percent to Paul in Australia. And that'll allow the embassies to kind of have, since there's different visibilities. We deal with different types of stresses, I guess, than the community, as far as like dealing with the budgets, allocation, accounting. And so sometimes it may be more difficult for the public to have full visibility into the exact requirements, or it may not match up exactly what's needed. So that's why that other voting group is there, to essentially kind of be the second checking and balancing with the whole thing. And then the same for developers, they're going to be allocated their keys. And so think of these contracts, these two types of contracts, as basically just two types of individuals. Developers will be able to essentially rebalance between one another as well. So the beautiful part about this type of DAO technology, though, is that you don't have a percentage of vote unless it's actually elected by the community for you. And then if you essentially, as an embassy, aren't producing what the community feels is satisfactory, then obviously you'll start to lose votes, and over that period of time your percentage will go down. And so that way it'll be kind of a natural self-cleaning mechanism in case there's any stale embassies, or things just aren't going the exact way that people would like them to. So that's a really exciting part, and that's kind of the main feature of Tritium++ that you guys know about. But there's some other ones that you guys may not know about, and that's kind of what the next parts of the roadmap are. So pooled staking, you guys know about this. This we have marked as our third highest priority. Pooled staking, think about it simply as me as a staker. I won't need to necessarily have to have a large amount of stake in order to get a block, because other people will be able to join together in a decentralized effort in order to essentially stake a block with more collective weight, because they can essentially combine all of those together. So that allows kind of the security of the network to consistently improve, while also increasing the availability for people, because a lot of times availability and security are kind of opposite sides. If you want to have a secure network, it's not going to be as available to the regular consumer. Bitcoin mining is a perfect example. Not many people can get into it because it's such a highly competitive, difficult And part of that is because the security of the Bitcoin network is dependent upon that. So there's less availability, because the availability is what generates security problems. If anybody could make a Bitcoin block, then Bitcoin wouldn't be very secure. So based on that type of concept, we've found kind of a nice way to balance to create availability, but also to create security at the same time with the pooled staking, and doing it in a decentralized way, which is really cool, because that is setting the foundation also for the decentralized mining pools that are going to be coming in Obsidian. So it's going to take the similar types of concepts, think of it as kind of foundational elements to eventually get the mining industry on that level too. Then the next one, you guys probably aren't going to know so much about this one, is called object modeling. So what you're going to be able to do with object modeling is have a lot more control over your objects, your object registers that you're creating through the API. One of which is going to be using extendable markup language, or XML, which is very useful, and will also be able to generate C++ classes. Paul can kind of go on that in a little more detail if he wants to, since that's kind of some of his.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just give a little bit of color to that.
And we can't hear you, Paul.
Can you hear me now?
Hello? Can't.
You can't? Anyone else hear me? Hello? I'm not muted. Hello, hello, hello.
I can hear you, Paul.
There you go. Scott can hear me.
Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Other people can. I guess I just can. So
can everyone else hear me? There you go. Okay. Great. Brilliant. Everyone can hear me. It's just you, Colin. Okay, so just to add a little bit of color to that, at the moment we've got our assets, which are kind of generic way of holding information in object registers, and people can dump whatever information they want into that. But the simple format that we use for assets at the moment is everything is in a key value pair. So you create an asset and then set, field 1 equals data 1, field 2 equals data 2, and so on and so forth, which is great for simple types, but we want to allow developers to store much more complex data types in there. And that's where this concept of object modeling comes in. So something that's been done across many programming languages over the last 10 years or so is the ability to use a GUI to drag and drop and design your data models, and then have some way to automatically turn that into your data structures in whatever language that you're coding in, and create classes for you and things like that. And that's what this object modeling is going to allow. So this will be a kind of way to have a UI where you create an object, an asset, but a more complex kind of asset, and then say, hey, I want to have a field here for name, and I want it to be a text field, and it's going to have a length of 10, and you can update it or you can't update it, and go through and kind of drag and drop elements into an object modeler to be able to create this sort of data structure, and then hit a button and it will create this underlying object register which represents that. And the go-between between the GUI that will do that and our actual object register that gets created will be via the API. We'll probably use XML as a way to define those object registers. So that's kind of where we're going, and part of the reason that we're going that route is, actually I'll let Colin talk about augmented contracts, but we basically want to add more functionality into our object registers and allow them to do more than just store data. And the contracts that we have right now are conditions. They're Boolean conditions essentially, and we want to be able to add more functionality to our contracts, which yeah, I'm going to let Colin go into it and explain what we're going to be doing to our virtual machine. But part of that will come into our objects as well, kind of like what we what you can do as a developer when you're creating classes in an object-oriented language. You define your data, and then you define the functionality that those objects can do. Object modeling will be the first part, and then yeah, what we're going to be doing as part of the object augmented contracts functionality is the functionality that you can add to those objects later. So I'm probably gone into way too much detail already, so I'll stop there and let you talk about augmented contracts.
I guess that segues into augmented contracts. So augmented just means improve or increase. So augmented contracts are kind of, right now we have conditional contracts, which, you can enter in. That's kind of how a decentralized exchange will happen. An augmented contract essentially defines more specific and complex behavior for objects themselves. So it includes, I guess, without going too technical, it gives you a lot of object-oriented behavior, which is object-oriented programming is very useful architecture that pretty much most developers use these days. And so what this is doing is it's giving us more object-oriented behavior for the object registers, essentially like having a method that holds, like if I have an object that has a limit field in there, and this limit every time that I transfer, this limit field is decremented by 1, which means it goes from 3 to 2 to 1, and it starts at 3, let's say. And then at a certain point, if I was doing a transfer primitive operator overload, I could say if this limit equals 0, then don't allow transfers to happen anymore. And put that behavior specifically in this asset so that when this asset is passed through like normal transactions where I'm transferring this to someone else, it has more specific I guess, verification that's going on, and it allows you as a developer to develop this specific behavior that allows you to have a lot more control over the objects and define their behavior in a lot, I guess, more ways. They'll have a lot more behavior, I guess you can say. And what this really does fundamentally is it gives the developer on Nexus a lot more power in the language and a lot more ability to do a lot more things. So this adds somewhat of a layer of computation in the verification. If I'm saying, every time this transfer happens, I'm decrementing this value, that's some form of arithmetic. But based on the conditional virtual machine, it's extremely quick, which is nice. So we're extending this conditional virtual machine to create another virtual machine that's going to be used specifically for augmented contracts. So conditional contracts have their own virtual machine. Augmented contracts will have their own virtual machine. And this will allow it to basically just keep track of certain states within it and provide methods so that somebody would be able to call this method from, a remote contract and, say execute this, which could cause something else to happen. So that's when we're going to start seeing a lot more programmable depth functionality. And that kind of ties in with the object modeling, because the object modeling is essentially defining the schema for the object. But within that, there's going to be domain specific languages that allow you to program specific things into the object model as well. Such as I want, this extra condition over transfers, which then comes into protected assets, right? Which is, the next roadmap item, which kind of is somewhat of a collection of augmented contracts and object modeling, because what a protected asset does is it essentially has this master owner. I mean, this is kind of for dealing with SEC regulations. If somebody wants to actually run a securitized token offering on Nexus, having protected assets allows the issuer to do their own type of, I guess, verification, which would be based on their regional areas. So it essentially gives people the ability to actually do full regulated securitized token offerings in a way, I guess, that they're going to have a visibility on that. And they're going to understand that these assets themselves are not like a normal cryptographic asset where you own it, you have it. These do have certain regulations on it, and them being protected. Only certain people will be able to receive them. Only certain people will be able to transfer them based on tagging. So, I mean, protected assets is just one use, I guess, of the augmented contracts. Think of it as all of these objects can start to basically have more complex interactions with one another based on these augmented contracts, which allows you to create more, I guess, sophisticated decentralized applications while still allowing us to scale it securely. That's why we've taken it step by step, and we have the post Tritium hard fork as Tritium ++, because we got everything done, but there was more that we still wanted to do, but we had to kind of draw that line at a certain point if we ever wanted to get it out of the lab, which was good because it's very tough to get. I mean, this has been under development for a couple of years now. So, I mean, getting that out of the lab was really, really important, and getting it out of the wild. And getting all those bugs hammered out and everything, because you're not going to catch everything in your own testing environment. Different computers and different environments bring out a lot of different things. So we didn't want to add too much complexity too quickly, and we also wanted to just assess all the functionality we had now, make sure everything's going properly, and then add layers of complexity as we develop it out. And that's kind of how the Tau framework is going to be unrolled as well. is we're going to slowly be building out all these different complexities, such as the Omni shards and everything, that are going to generate more and more ability to use the network in different ways, but slowly, not too fast. Because if you do too many things too fast, there's too many unknowns that could potentially happen. And when you're faced to issues or errors or challenges or bugs, it can make the process much, much more time consuming. And sometimes even make you less successful because you're not able to handle all that complexity too quickly. So the next item is the hybrid mode, which this is essentially allowing other private networks to essentially use some sort of hybrid sig chain to control the access of their private network. And this is something that we're imagining becoming more and more in demand as Nexus Enterprise continues along their pursuit and they get more use cases. That's kind of more of an enterprise feature, but it does also function for sister networks, which are other public networks that may be application-specific network. Hybrid mode could also be used for that, so we don't see that as just purely for enterprise use. Anything you want to add to that, Paul?
No, I was just going to say about hybrid mode that to add hybrid support is not a huge amount of work. In fact, we did a lot of it late in the Tritium release and then decided not to include it for risk of destabilizing Tritium. It's not a huge amount of work, but the reason it's number 8 on our priority list is right now we just don't. There hasn't been a request for it, so we need to be sensible about what we're spending our time on, and we'll bump that up the priority list, potentially even bringing forward a hard fork to include it if there's a need for it. And that probably goes for the whole of our plan for Tritium++. Is right now we have kind of an idea of the order that we want to do things. We're asking for community feedback to give us the okay or say otherwise if you think our priorities are wrong. But if things change over time, if we find that perhaps the mobile wallet is going to be taking a lot longer, or then we might decide to bump that out, or if we're going to need to be fluid once we start to get into some of the technical design and then the implementation. So right now we're just in an early planning phase of all of this. We have high-level solutions for everything that we're planning to do. The next phase for us will be to spend the next week or 2 or 3, however long it takes, starting to go down into a bit more detail on each of these features. As we're starting them, we already know which of our developers are going to be working on which pieces. We just need to bash out the design and then we can get cracking on it. Until we've done that, we won't have a real idea of how long it will take to achieve all of these. And it might be that Tritium++, and I'm just spitballing here, Colin, you please interject if you think that this isn't correct, but Tritium++ might not be hey, this is Tritium++ and it's being released on this day. It might be that we even have to stage the release of Tritium++ itself, because some of these features may be able to be implemented much sooner and be very useful for people to use much sooner. Something like pooled staking, we think might not actually take that long to implement, and we might be able to get out in weeks, or and there's no point waiting months for everything else to be finished in order to release that feature.
I'll agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if there's certain things that's why we have the priority list. They don't all have to be on one hard fork. Preferably just for people. I mean, we're not going to be doing too many hard forks, but if there are certain features that we can do earlier, like pooled staking, which is a pretty simple algorithm, then yeah, we'll be putting those out. So I mean, the Tritium++ era, I guess, can span out. I mean, some of the features, I think the DAO is probably going to take the longest to get right. So other than that, I mean, the rest of them, I mean, augmented contracts aren't that complicated as far as just extending the virtual machine object modeling. So yeah. I mean,
yeah, and I think it's also important to point out that features such as the DAO and object modeling will require GUI work as well in order for you to use them. I know we will be able to just support these features via the API, which is where we'll start, but we want a GUI over the top of that. And if we're needing changes to the GUI to support them, then we're going to have to pull resources away from doing the mobile wallet. So we're just going to have to be fluid in the timeline for delivery of each of these features. But I see it's been asked, is there a rough time frame for the DAO? 6 to 12 months.
I think that's a fair estimate, 6 to 12 months. What do you think?
I'd like it to be sooner than that.
Yeah, I'd like it to be way sooner than that, but I'd also like the public expectation of it to be not so soon.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be sooner, but I'd say 6 to 12 months is a reasonable expectation. We don't really foresee it taking any longer than that. It'll most likely be much sooner than that, but no definitive.
Yeah, it's really hard for us to give a timeline at this stage, because even though we've got a high level idea of what a high level design of how all these are going to fit together and what they're going to do, until we actually get down and do a detailed design and figure out what we're doing and who's going to do it, we're not going to put any estimates against any of those sub features that will end up making the DAO. So until we've done that, we can't come up with a realistic estimate. But I think I think 6 to 12 months for the whole lot seems achievable.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, thanks, Nate.
We had one guy, Peter, ask about funding. If the coin stays at current price or drops much lower, how will development be funded? I mean, right now we're funding pretty much just us. So I mean, it's Paul, me, Kendall, Nick, Scott, Simon, Christo. I think, did I miss anyone? But I mean, if the price goes down much lower, I mean, it just means that there's less hours and things just go a little bit slower. If the price goes up, then that means people get more hours. I mean, people are pretty much almost at full time in US. Now that we're doing some adjustments too, like it's kind of a new landscape this month since we're no longer supporting business development, and some of the funding allocation changed in January. So we're in a different position. I mean, it's not like we're in any like dire position where it's nothing's going to get done. I mean, if you want a worst possible case scenario, though, in a worst possible case scenario, it's just probably going to be me and Paul and Scott. A few other people just still work. I mean, I'm never going to stop working on it. So, I mean, development's always going to be getting done, but price, will have correlations to how quickly things get done. I mean, based on my perspective, seeing Tritium get delivered, I mean, we delivered a serious protocol with very few hands, and we delivered it in a pretty decent time. I mean, just a reminder to everybody, Ethereum's been working on their 2.0 for like 5 years. You thought we were bad. I mean, their nodes don't even talk to each other yet. They just barely like had a huge thing where their nodes actually can communicate. So, I mean, sometimes big development teams are not always faster than small ones. And I think based on our team, I mean, I think we have a really solid team of really awesome devs. And they're all like believe in the project. We're all here like till the wheels fall off or not. So I mean, we're pretty much like, we're at the bottom and we're all going to keep churning. I think no matter what. I mean, if there's less to go around, we kind of figure that out amongst ourselves and figure out what to go where. But
Yeah, just to add to that, I think I agree. The team we have now is as small as we can allow it to be, and we have everyone in the team right now is crucial. They're all doing a really good job, and we will do everything in our power to keep it that way. Colin hasn't been paying himself for pretty much the entire of this project, but is now in a position that perhaps he can start taking something for himself, which is great. But if the price keeps dropping, then basically Colin and myself tend to not pay ourselves and take a cut to make sure everyone else gets paid first, and that's kind of the priority I think we're going to continue with for now. If the price happens to drop significantly much further, but the position we're in right now is that we're pretty secure, we're okay. I think I mentioned this in the last Zoom that here in Australia we're applying for some government funding. It's kind of like a tax rebate for research and development work, which I'm hoping we will qualify for. And if we do, then that will significantly improve the situation here in Australia as well, and give us some additional funding back from last year, and also for next year and possibly the year after as well. So that will help things as well. So in Australia, that pays for myself and for Christo Key. Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, we're even though the price is pretty low, we're a long way from it being a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, if it went down to like 5 cents, I mean, we'd probably all be like suffering quite a bit. But, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be. And pretty much what we've done up to now is we've done what needs to get done to get things done that we said that we were going to do. And it's going to continue being that way no matter what. So, I mean, we don't really look at the price or like worry, you know, we make projections of like worst case scenarios and like what things are going to look like, financial projections and everything. But, you know, other than that, it's just kind of, you know, keep on churning out good stuff and, you know, keep on working. And that's kind of how our focus is now. So, yeah, I mean, you got us, you know, as we are. And, you know, the team as it is like I said, an awesome team. And I mean, even if there was less money, I think, you know, people would still be working. You know, we just maybe bill less hours. That's kind of how we do it in the US, is we just kind of have a liquid budget that, you know, I mean, if the price is a little bit lower, a little bit higher, we just have to be able to handle the bit of volatility, especially at the bottom of the market right now. It's going to be a little bit volatile. So the guys that you, you know, see still here are the Jedis, you know, they're ones that, you know, kept with it. And so, I mean, make sure to give them some props, seriously. You know, I mean, it's been amazing working with such great developers and like developing this product and everything. And, you know, like finally getting this done. You know, we've been talking about having it done for a long time, and it's been a huge weight on all of, you know, my shoulders, I felt, for a long time, and it's good to see it. So, all right, cool. So Made, I think, is saying first mobile wallet, second DAO, and third staking pool. I think that's what we had, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much our immediate priority. As I say, whether or not they'll be delivered in that order, I don't know, but that's
It'll probably be mobile wallet. I'm guessing is probably going to be in beta for a while. So I mean, it's not going to be like all of a sudden a mobile wallet just comes and everyone's, you know, mobile wallet.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. You want to say something, Kendall?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, don't think the mobile wallet is like it's not going to stop the progress on the other ones. It is definitely like, this is I don't want to say side project because that's not true, but like it's a side thing that's going in conjunction with the main track. So, you know, we will switch from back and forth as need be to get things progressing, but it's not like we're stopping everything to get the mobile wallet done. You know, the mobile wallet is in tangent with the other stuff.
Yeah, we have a lot of different things we're juggling as all of us devs, like I said, Jedis. But yeah. So just don't think that everybody think for the mobile wallet, because the main wallet still does have debugging and we still put out updates and everything. So we decided that I think there's been enough demand for a mobile wallet, and I think for adoption, I think it's really important to have and having an official mobile wallet. So we decided to kind of put this as a high priority. Now, high priority doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be done first, though. High priority means this is just where we're focusing a lot of efforts, if we can, towards it, because there is the DAO and the pooled staking. But I think probably DAO is going to come out after pooled staking. That's a lot simpler, so that can probably come out sooner, depending on how many times you guys really want to update. And I guess we can kind of go over that as the time rolls on and let you guys know, hey, we have pooled staking working great on testnet. You guys want us to deploy it, things like that. So yep, cool. I guess, are there any other questions that we have, suggestions to our priorities, or is everybody pretty good now?
So should we just talk about a little bit about what to expect from us over the next 2 to 4 weeks then? because I think there's some things that we're working on right now which we haven't really discussed, which I'm happy to talk a little bit about if you want, or you can talk about that.
No, you take it, man.
Yes, we had this idea, Colin had this idea before Christmas for a really nice use of our object registers, to create a little a new module in the wallet to be able to offer an invoicing feature. So where users are able to create an invoice, send that to another user, essentially send it to another user, and then that user then has to pay that invoice, and it's essentially what it is. But this is a good use case for our object registers as they are, but it also, and the reason we're kind of doing this now is it's some of the things that we might need, some of the changes we might need to make in order to support this invoicing kind of lead into the changes that we're going to make for object modeling in Tritium++. So it's kind of an exploratory sort of project which leads us into the development work we're doing for Tritium++, but at the same time gives us a nice little use case and something that we should be able to release quite quickly, and it will be a cool little feature. And actually one of the reasons we wanted it is Colin wanted it for his own accounting, because in the US he pays all the developers in Nexus, and all the developers are contractors, and this will give them a nice way to use our platform to generate an invoice, send to Colin, and he can pay them, and then he has full transparency and history on all of his the accounting for the contractor payments. So that's something that's a little side project that's been going on over Christmas. Actually, over that period, Kendall's been working on the UI for that, and just this week I've started having a look at the back end support for that, and writing a little API for it, and pretty much all of it we can support out of the box with our object registers as they are, and it's actually very simple for us to do the back end work for this. We may, as I say, want to make some little tweaks to the way object registers work in order to support invoices and support any other kinds of objects that you might want to store on chain, and that it then leads into Tritium++. So yeah, that's something we will be working on as priorities allow over the next 2 to 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah, and it's one of those cool things that kind of is just born out of necessity, because everybody's just, they send their invoices, and then they send their emails, and then I have to go to the wallet, and then I have to calculate it, and then send the amounts, and like it's just this big long process. So we figured this was a really cool use case, and also it shows the actual invoices on the blockchain, on the US SIG chain, so that the community will basically have transparency completely on like who's being paid, when they're being paid, things like that, which is pretty cool. And that kind of opens the door to a little bit with more DAO functionality too, of, well, can we program in some specific conditions where an embassy SIG chain can only be invoiced by people that are pre-approved as approved developers, or, like different things like that in the future, where like there can be more granular support of the DAO. So like it kind of opens up a whole can of worms of really, really useful technology. And it kind of just was born when I was using the wallet, and just realizing like this wallet just feels like I'm using a bank. It feels super slick. It's super clean. I can see everything. And then I just started thinking, well, what if this wallet was the only thing I ever needed to do to run a business, right? And what type of, modules and things in there would be really useful for that? And it was just invoices. Perfect, right? Any freelancer on Nexus will be able to just invoice somebody in Nexus. Boom. Right there, issue the invoice. Then you have transaction history of that. You show that. And you can also just, deny an invoice, and then they have the price that they requested at too. So that helps for accounting for, tax purposes and things like that, showing exactly how much something was worth when you received it and things like that. So yeah, that's a cool, and we're gonna be releasing that probably in one of the new feature updates. Along with, we're gonna have a hard fork. I don't think we've decided exactly when, but probably within a few weeks, probably towards the end of the month, I guess, is when the hard fork would actually take place. And this is going to be to activate new SIG chain allocations based on the DAO vote that we had, and throw in any extra stuff that we feel we want to do to improve. So it's kind of just a maintenance hard fork, which we'll be releasing, and that'll be releases version 5.0. Some of you saw the discussions that we were having the other day. So I'm going to be working on a new spec for the versioning, but you're going to be able to know from your wallet version whether or not you need to update it to or not. The first two version numbers are going to be the mandatory version numbers. The first one signifying hard forks, and the second one signifying mandatory updates. And then the final number is going to be optional update numbers, which would be patches or new features, things like that. So that way, I think that will help people know, hey, if I'm using this wallet, is this wallet still valid? If you know what the most recent version is. I think that's pretty much it from your side.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all we're going to be working on for the next couple of weeks. I think maybe just thinking about when a next dev Zoom. We might not be
next month. Let's do it once a month while we're kind of in the slow season. Unless you guys want more than that, I think once a month probably is fine for now.
Yeah, I think it's going to take us a little while to ramp up development again, and that's partly because we're just coming out of the Christmas season, the holiday season, where developers are just getting back into it, but also partly because we've got to go through this kind of planning stage again, and people are sort of doing some groundwork, some investigation work and things like that before we can start banging out code pretty fast. So yeah, we probably don't need another Zoom
till early February, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with that.
Any focus on more incentivization for NXS? Part of the incentivization of the NXS is the mobile wallet and actually having people able to use it. I think what incentive systems that we have now is like CoinKit, but we kind of believe that the mobile wallet is going to be really important for people to start actually being able to use it more in their day-to-day lives. There's also, certain enterprises decide to use hybrid mode. There's hybrid mode fees. The DEX also, which is another really important one. Actually, I think I forgot to discuss that one. I think I skipped that one.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, the DEX essentially uses conditional contracts. So this doesn't require a hard fork, but we believe the DEX is actually going to drive a lot of incentive for NXS, especially when we get these protected assets done. That's going to essentially create a securitized token offering platform, which is going to be very useful for anybody that's wanting to run an actually fully regulated security on a blockchain. And then that will tie in with the DEX because people wanting to get into some of these STO token economies will be able to just do it directly off of the DEX. They're not going to have to go through any centralized exchanges. And it'll happen very quickly because the Nexus blockchain is generally pretty quick. So I think that's going to be another really, really important component for building incentive or, getting people to use NXS, which is going to drive a lot more adoption. Yep, the mobile wallet will follow the same rules as the desktop wallet. So yes, it'll be free for credit debits if you don't send too many transactions too fast, though. I think, what is it, 1 minute, 10 seconds, something? Nah, I can't remember. Maybe 10 minutes.
It's been a few weeks since I looked at it.
Yeah. It's pretty much a throttling fee. So if you send too many transactions too fast, you're going to pay the throttling fee. But if you don't, then it's going to be free.
More than one transaction every 10 seconds, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So, so the DEX is mainly going to be done on a logical layer. So we're working out some designs right now for kind of database clustering and how we're going to handle that clustering because the only issue with doing a DEX right now is just basically the front end and logical layer that's required to do it, such as when I submit an order, you need to have some form of order tracking to know what orders are where in order to generate order books. To the blockchain, it's just a bunch of transactions, some with conditions, some not. It doesn't really discern that way. So we need to have some sort of interface that you submit your orders through that essentially go and they sit in a database cluster of these indexes saying that these transactions on the blockchain are actually claimable orders. It's pretty much all that we really need to do, but we see it kind of becoming more than just a DEX. Hopefully, in the future, we see it becoming kind of more of an open marketplace too for different assets and things like that, where people can, trade. And, the invoicing DEX type thing works cool too, because that's basically just issuing an asset and then going into a decentralized exchange with the person that you're issuing the invoice to, saying, "Hey, pay me this money," and then you can get this invoice, and then you receive the invoice as your final proof or your receipt. So a lot more types of things like that can start kind of coming up through the DEX too. And yeah, that's one thing that we see is bringing a lot of adoption is the mobile wallet and the actual decentralized exchange. Cool. Well, I guess we've been going The usual 45 minutes to an hour. That's good. That's good. All right. Well,
I just want to say, if anyone wants to talk about any of these features in any more detail and talk about what we've got planned and how we're going to implement things such as pooled staking or the DEX and things like that, and to discuss the kind of ideas that we're having right now, just buzz us on Slack or on Telegram, and we'll jump into a chat with you, or jump on a Google Hangouts, and we're happy to chat about it and let you know where we're at.
Yep, so just let us know. All right. Well, I guess without further ado, we will conclude this Zoom. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Things are definitely blossoming. Things are looking good. We're really happy with the direction. We're really happy that Nexus Enterprise is pursuing and becoming successful in their own right, and that everything's moving in the direction it is. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining us for another Zoom, and we shall see you next month.